Welcome to this explainer. I am so excited to dive into this with you today. We're tackling one of the biggest, most profound conversations in human history. Basically, we're looking at the incredibly fascinating relationship between scientific inquiry and religious thought. For centuries, right, these two colossal forces have totally shaped how we understand the universe and our place in it. We're going to unpack the history, the friction, and actually the really surprising harmony between them by looking at some incredible source materials.
Okay, let's dive into this by confronting the elephant in the room. Must science and religion be enemies? I mean, it's a massive cultural stereotype that these two fields are just locked in this eternal, inescapable war. If you scroll through the news or listen to popular debates, it really feels like you're forced to pick a side. But is that supposed conflict actually accurate? Or are we fundamentally misunderstanding how both of these fields actually work?
To set up the incredibly high stakes of this intellectual journey, just consider this famous quote from Albert Einstein. He said, "Religion without science is blind. Science without religion is lame." This was actually brought up during a landmark 2006 forum at Hong Kong Baptist University that we are going to explore deeply today. Einstein clearly understood that these two monumental ways of thinking might actually need each other to navigate the sheer complexity of existence.
So here is our roadmap for today. 1. The Great Divide. 2. Separate boxes, NOMA. 3. The boundary dispute. 4. Science and faith as friends. And finally, 5. Binocular vision.
Section 1. The Great Divide.
We really have to start by acknowledging the historical friction between empirical facts and faith. I'm talking about everything from Galileo's clash with the church all the way to modern debates over evolutionary biology. For a very long time, the absolute easiest way for society to view these two monumental forces was basically as combatants, right? Locked in an eternal war. It's a framework that just assumes science and religion are fighting over the exact same territory of truth, and if one wins, the other literally has to lose. But as we dig into the sources, we'll see that some of the greatest minds of the 20th century realized that this whole combat framework was entirely inadequate.
Section 2. Separate boxes, NOMA. So the crucial point is, an easy fix to settle this long-standing war was proposed back in 1997 by the renowned paleontologist Stephen Jay Gould. He came up with this concept called non-overlapping magisteria, or NOMA for short. He actually borrowed that term magisterium from a 1950 encyclical by Pope Pius XII. NOMA essentially acts as a diplomatic peace treaty. It proposes that science and religion have completely distinct domains of teaching authority. He called them nets, and that these nets simply do not overlap.
Under Gould's framework, it's like a giant sorting system. Science gets the facts of the natural world. It tells us what the universe is made of and exactly how it works. Religion, on the other hand, gets the entire realm of human purposes, meanings, and values. It tells us how we should behave and what it all actually means. It's a brilliantly neat resolution that, in theory, keeps everyone safely in their own lane, avoiding conflict entirely.
Section 3. The boundary dispute.
NOMA sounds incredibly neat, doesn't it? Well, as we explore the source material, we find that this peace treaty really didn't hold up for everyone. There's been some fierce pushback from several prominent skeptics. Richard Dawkins points out that religions constantly make claims about existence and reality, things like miracles or divine intervention, which are inherently scientific claims that can be tested. Matt Ridley notes that morals and ethics aren't purely spiritual at all. They actually have observable evolutionary origins. And Sam Harris argues that human values lawfully depend on the physical, observable states of the human brain. So neutrally speaking, these thinkers are arguing that religion inevitably steps right onto science's turf, which makes Gould's whole separate boxes idea pretty much impossible to maintain.
Section 4. Science and faith as friends.
If the war model is totally destructive and the separate boxes model is highly disputed, where in the world does that leave us? Well, this brings us back to that historic 2006 dialogue at Hong Kong Baptist University featuring two absolute titans of physics. On one side, we have John C. Polkinghorne, a theoretical physicist who literally worked on subatomic particles for 25 years before becoming an Anglican priest. On the other side, we have Chen-Neng Yang, a secular physicist and an actual Nobel laureate. Together, they argue that rather than being separated by a giant fence or locked in a bitter war, science and religion are actually deeply interconnected dialogue partners.
Just consider this profound quote from Professor Yang. Science and religion belong to one family from the beginning. Coming from a secular Nobel laureate, that is just a stunning statement. Yang proposes that both of these fields share the exact same origin. And what is that? It's the fundamental, deeply human desire to just understand reality. Sure, they use completely different methods, but their ultimate aim is exactly the same. Now, what's really interesting here is how Yang illustrates this shared quest for truth. He brings up Paul Dirac's famous equation for the electron. For Yang, this equation isn't just a bunch of dry math on a chalkboard. It is a literal miracle of grand, elegant design. It represents this incredible moment where the human mind tapped straight into the underlying beautiful structure of the universe itself.
To prove just how miraculous this actually is, Yang pointed out that this relatively simple mathematical structure predicted the magnetic strength of a spinning electron accurately to at least 11 decimal points. I mean, just pause and think about that level of precision for a second. 11 decimal points. No way! To put that 11 decimal precision into perspective, Yang shared a pretty staggering analogy. I want you to imagine a giant room filled with 100 billion marbles. Achieving the accuracy of the Dirac equation is literally like perfectly counting every single one of those hundreds of billions of marbles down to the very last one, without making a single mistake. For Yang, witnessing this kind of mind-bending mathematical beauty and precision in the universe completely transcended mere scientific observation. It actually became a deeply religious experience of awe. Even as someone who doesn't identify as religious, Yang recognized that penetrating the deep secrets of nature evokes a profound humility that borders right on the spiritual. It points directly to a rationally beautiful universe. But this dialogue wasn't just about cosmic awe, right? It transitioned to the very real-world stakes of our time. Yang expressed a deep, deep anxiety about a human race propelled forward by raw scientific power, but without a matching moral compass. Science is incredible at telling us what we can do, but how do we decide what we should do? This is exactly where these two brilliant dialogue partners agree we desperately need both voices at the table. Let's move to and see how this builds, because we can see the stakes super clearly when we look at human progress. For basically 99 centuries of human history, progress was remarkably slow. But just look at the 20th century. In 1900, we traveled on horseback at maybe 8 kilometers an hour. Today, we fly in planes at 800. In 1900, diabetes was incurable. Today, we have organ transplants and antibiotics. This represents an explosive, total runaway acceleration of technology, unlike absolutely anything in human history.
But, as we know, that acceleration has a terrifying dark side. Back in 1900, a major explosive might yield about 500 pounds of TNT. Today, a hydrogen bomb yields the equivalent of 20 billion pounds of TNT. That terrifying leap in our destructive capability proves Young and Polkinghorne's central point perfectly. Science gives us immense, almost godlike power, but without the ethical, philosophical, and moral grounding that religion and theology have cultivated for millennia, we genuinely might not survive our own technological adolescence.
Section 5. Binocular Vision. This brings us to the ultimate resolution offered by Polkinghorne at the Hong Kong Forum. If the idea of war is inaccurate, and separate boxes are just way too simplistic, how should we view these two fields? Well, Polkinghorne summarizes it beautifully. He says, if we are truly to understand the world, I believe we shall need to look at the universe with both the eye of science and with the eye of religion. This binocular vision will enable us to see and comprehend much more than we can ever manage with either eye on its own. It's brilliant, right? The impersonal facts of science and the personal truths of religion aren't rivals at all. They are absolutely essential partners. Just like you need two eyes for depth perception, you need both of these fields to see reality in full 3D.
So, I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative question. Are you looking at the world with only one eye? Whether you lean entirely toward empirical science or deeply into religious faith, the source material today really challenges all of us to expand our vision. Thank you so much for learning with me in this explainer today, and I really hope this leaves you with a whole lot to ponder about how you view the incredible universe we live in.